You've got a successful start to solid foods. You're coming up on the 1-year birthday. What are some foods that your child should be able to eat by the time they turn 1? Hello, I'm Katie Ferraro. I'm a registered dietitian, mom of 7. I specialize in infant feeding and baby-led weaning. And I hear from parents all the time, like, tell me what's next. We did the solid foods. We're doing baby-led weaning. Where are we heading towards? So here are a couple things that you're going to want your baby to be able to do by the time they turn 1. Ideally, by the time your baby is 1, we would love to see your baby sitting at the table and eating modified versions of the same foods that the rest of your family does. When you started out on solid foods, remember at 6 months of age, your baby was getting 100% of their nutrition from infant milk. That's breast milk or formula. But by age 1, at the 12-month mark, we like to see babies getting most of their nutrition from food. Now, your baby at 1 will still be getting a little bit of nutrition from milk. That's breast milk. If you and baby decide to breastfeed beyond 1, wonderful. If you're formula feeding, you'll stop the commercial infant formula and make the transition to cow's milk. Breastfeeding babies can transition to cow's milk as well. And we start with full-fat, whole milk cow's milk. We don't offer any reduced fat, non-fat, or low-fat dairy products to babies until they're 2 years of age and beyond, because your baby needs that fat for their still developing brain. How do we want your baby drinking milk when they turn 1? Well, ideally, that's going to be out of an open cup. You can discontinue the bottle use around the 1-year mark. So when you transition to whole milk cow's milk, you'll pour some of that in the open cup for your baby. And hopefully you've been practicing open cup drinking. Since your baby turned 6 months of age, your baby by 12 months of age should be able to drink out of an open cup on their own, albeit with minimal spillage. So what about the foods that your baby is eating by age 1? You probably noticed that your baby is getting teeth. They didn't have teeth when they started solid foods, and that's perfectly fine. Most babies don't have teeth when they start solid foods, and you don't need teeth to learn how to eat. But by age 1, most babies have teeth, and there are some foods that you'll find are certainly safer for babies to eat once they have a tooth or two. Two of the ones that I love for older babies who have teeth: eating meat off of the bone. So giving your baby a chicken leg where you remove the skin and the gristle or any errant bones, but letting your baby go to town and eat those nice, fatty, soft strips of meat. Let them pull it off the bone themselves with their own teeth. Another great one for older babies: corn on the cob. Now, there's lots of ways to make corn safer for earlier eaters, but it's certainly safer and more efficient for your baby to get that corn off of the cob if they have a tooth or two. Another category of foods that's great for older babies are foods that require a pincer grasp. Okay, those are small pieces of food. So if you're wondering, when can I cut the food into smaller pieces? It's once your baby has had ample time and practice with a variety of different textures and can also now master that pincer grasp. When they start out with solid foods, they don't have the pincer grasp. 6 and 7, 8-month-old babies, they use that whole hand or the palmar grasp. That's why we cut the foods longer earlier on in baby-led weaning. But later, once your baby gets that pincer grasp, start doing smaller pieces of food, but with a couple of precautionary tips. When it comes to food like cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes or grapes, a big piece of food like that's a huge choking hazard for a baby. We want to cut these into quarters prior to age 1, and I'll still continue to cut cherry or grape tomatoes in halves, grapes as well, after age 1. For small pieces of food, you can still make alterations to them to make them safer for babies. For blueberries, a food that I won't do until the baby has their pincer grasp, I will smash the blueberries with my thumb to flatten them, which makes it easier and safer for the baby to pick up and feed to themselves. And as a reminder, I know by 1 your baby is also starting to walk, meaning that they're moving around. And you might be tempted to let your baby walk around or move around and eat. But please know that choking risk goes through the roof when we allow children to leave the chair and eat pieces of food like blueberries or small pieces of grapes that could potentially occlude their airway. So continue encouraging your baby to sit in their high chair for all eating events and make sure their feet are rested flat on a solid foot plate in order to promote a safe swallow. When it comes to textures, by age 1, I hope that your baby has tried a wide variety of foods and flavors and tastes and textures. You've been exploring lots of different textures through single different foods that you've been trying, hopefully lots of new foods, as many as you can, so that now by the time your baby turns 1, They're totally pro at a variety of different textures. Go through a list of all the foods your baby has tried and pick out, gosh, how many different textures have we done? You'll be amazed at how a variety of foods equates to a variety of textures. So some foods that are great texture options for older babies, and younger babies can eat these too. But by age 1, I hope your baby has mastered lumpy textures. So lumpy foods are foods like oatmeal, for example, a wonderful source of whole grain that has a little bit of iron, some plant protein and fiber. Your baby can feed it to themselves off of a pre-loaded spoon. Your baby should be able to dip and scoop with their spoon by the time they turn 1. Another great texture for babies is the rubbery texture. Now, I love to do hard-boiled egg whites for babies. It's a really cool exposure to that potentially allergenic food protein that we find in egg whites, but that rubbery texture is very unique. An additional way that you can do rubbery textures for older babies or your almost 1-year-old is to try some mushrooms out. So if you saute mushroom strips, get them nice and soft, they're rubbery, but your baby by 1 should be able to master that. It's definitely not something we do for the early eaters though. Another texture includes stringy foods. If your family eats animal foods, hopefully you are doing foods like meats early and often for your baby. Incredible texture opportunity, a great way to offer iron and zinc and new flavors and nutrition, but that stringy texture, remember the soft shreddable strips of meat. If you can shred that meat between your finger and your thumb, then it's safe for the baby to eat with their gums. You might be tempted to try more challenging cuts of meat, but please know that solid pieces of meat like steak or pork chops are still not appropriate for babies. Those are challenging even for toddlers to eat. So if you're offering meats, stick to the stringy or the shreddable cuts of meat and continue to offer those to your baby for nutrition and texture opportunities. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and get notified when new videos come out so that you can stay moving along this continuum so your baby masters all of these skills by the time they turn 1. And if you have an almost 1-year-old, I'd love to hear what foods they're eating now that they couldn't just a few months ago. Drop the foods in the comment, and thanks again for watching.